No, we're going live now.
Okay, I can't say it.
Whew, I think we're just about there. I'm getting a redirect coming up. And good afternoon, Frankston. Welcome back to another Sunday session. We're at a special time of the campaign where ballot papers have all been posted. They haven't necessarily arrived in your letterbox yet, but they've certainly been posted. If you haven't got yours already, it should arrive in the next few days. And if you don't have it by, I'd say, the middle, if not the end of the week, then please get in touch with the Frankston Victorian Electoral Commission office. I will provide their number at the end of this broadcast. Joined today by Justin Turner, Sue Baker, Peter Malone, and we will be shortly joined, I hope, fingers crossed, another candidate, this time from the North East Ward, in the form of Shane Osborne. Brad Hill is not joining us today. He's got other matters to attend to. But I'll be looking forward to Shane joining us when he clicks on the link. So we'll just carry on in the meantime. Again, this is our Sunday session where we have a bit of a reflection on the week so far. I think Justin and Sue might have quite a lot to say because they've just come off a discussion around mental health with Glenn Cooper and most of the other Northwest Ward candidates, a couple notable by their absence, but we'll come back to that as we go. It was lovely to see a bit of sunshine out over the last couple of days. The weather has turned a little bit. I've managed to get the green thumbs out. The other thing, of course, is that we're at the pointy end of the campaign. Pretty much everyone's gone digital. There's been some interesting developments in that space, and I'll share my own reflections on that. But Justin, given your challenges with bandwidth in the last couple of conversations we've had, how about you open up for today?
Thanks, Steve, and thank you very much for the last one as well. I was sitting there, I suppose I was frozen at your end. So thank you for being my voice. So sort of reflections on what's happening, and before I sort of go into that, I'd like to sort of issue an apology for anyone if my language was a little bit colourful in Glenn's video. It's something that, you know, perhaps I lost my cool about, but it's something that I'm very passionate about as well. You know, I'm not going to steal sort of Glenn's spade for a spade, but it's just telling it as it is. And I think that's probably something at council that hasn't necessarily been a consistency, the sort of transparency and just putting everything out there in its raw form to make sure that everyone's sort of across what it is and where we all stand. So I make no apologies for what I said, but I make some apologies about perhaps some of the delivery on there and perhaps raising my voice a little bit. But in terms of, onto a brighter note now, what's happened over the last week? Yes, very much in the digital space. Very much on speaking with people over the phone, and there's been some really surprising people that have reached out. I really, really love that I've had a lot of first voters reaching out to me. I think that is something really, really special. When I was 18 and I was first voting, I sort of went, oh, well, who's on the card? Yeah, they look okay. So yeah, or they seem to say what I think they should say, and I'd vote for them that way. So to have young people reach out to me and ask me about where I stand on things or point out a couple of things that they think are really important is absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. So, but look, other than that, it's, yeah, as you said, Steve, it's sort of the pointy end. We're coming to the conclusion, and yeah, just sort of ticking along. So all I'd like to put out on that note is keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming. Challenge me. Ask me anything you want to know. There's no secrets. You know, we're certainly not going to, and I think I speak broadly for all of us, we're not going to keep the same sort of consistency. It's all an open book. It's all transparent, and we're all people with, you know, high morals and integrity. So keep them coming, and please keep asking those questions.
Great, thanks very much, Justin. And I'm pleased to see as well that you're keeping your campaign clean as well. So I think well done on that, because I'm sure at this point frustrations can set in, and sometimes people behave poorly.
Yeah, look, I don't want to dwell too much on it, but you know, there is some underhanded things going on from some of the candidates, and I won't dwell too much on who they are, what they are, or anything like that. And it's very disappointing. And I think that sort of is a display of the consistency in bad behaviour that's Frankston unfortunately has become used to, and it's not good enough. But yeah, look, it's rising above it. I'm not interested in running dirty campaigns or bad politics. I think we've certainly seen our fair share of that. So it's about doing the right thing. So no, I'm certainly not interested. I know that Sue's been directly affected by a couple of these things as well. So no, it's about rising above it and making sure that we act with integrity, transparency, and honesty.
I couldn't agree more, Justin. I think that's why we need a fresh start for Frankston. Sue, how's your week been? You must be a bit knackered after what was quite an intense conversation, and I imagine you were sort of cheering Justin on as he was getting excitable.
Yeah, and well, look, I think passion is a really important part of being a community representative. You know, being bland and saying the right things, and and that was a bit of a theme that I think got to Justin a little bit in the last, got to all of us, a number of us in the last session. You know, being seen to say the right things to the right people, but not actually being following that through with taking action or really delivering on a result, or really listening to the nuance that someone in the community is wanting to be heard on. So, and that for me is a really important part of why I'm really excited to be in this election campaign for the very first time for me, because there are some things that I really hold very dear around providing service and being a leader that serves and supports others to serve well. So it's as the whole process has evolved and grown, and I've learned lots more and I understand how this whole campaign process works, I can feel myself getting more excited and intense, because it's really important. It really does matter to get over the line in a couple of weeks' time. So, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the topics a bit later, but I'm very proud to be sporting my T-shirt that a friend had made for me. She actually lives in another council area, so won't be voting for me, but this is her contribution, and she put on the back, if I turn around, so I've got the poster, my little poster on the back, so I'm uber excited. I have two, so I shall sleep in one and wear the other for the next 2 weeks. So if I'm out on my bike or walking anywhere, it will be noticed. But I think it is part of keeping the energy up, and the campaigning is in some ways the easy bit. The real hard yards will start with, for whoever is elected to council. That's really going to be where the serious work starts. And if I can say, and I'm actually not really one for blowing my own trumpet at all, but out today at a couple of different shopping strips, and because I had the T-shirt on, I had 3 people come up to me and say, do you know what, we've just posted our ballot and you were our #1 pick. And I'm sure you've all had that experience, and it's like really, really humbling. I thought, wow, hooly dooly, you know, we're in this lockdown mode. People are really, I mean, they have to vote or else they get fined. I know there is that, but they're really thinking about it and asking questions and making decisions, or talking to their partner or their families. And so that's, you know, that's another bit which has revved me up today to say this is really serious, important work just to get elected and to demonstrate that integrity and honesty, and wanting to be accountable and wanting to serve the community. So so that's me, and I do have I've kept a promise this week that I made last week. Do you even remember the promise that I made? As you had your Spoonville behind you last week.
Oh yes.
I would like to introduce you all and Frankston to Frankie.
Oh, nice! I like it. I think Oliver Hill might be at risk here.
So she's Frankie Spoon. If you say it quickly, it might sound like Frankston. But anyway, Frankie Spoon is sporting my colours, which is the blue of the foreshore and our wonderful beach, the Seaford wetlands and all the reserves, the pines, flora fauna reserve, so that blue-green combination. So she will be looking for a Vill I did see a lovely little one today, actually, but she'll be looking for a Ville, and I'm very happy to, if someone wants to shout out and say, yes, we'd like her to go with first in, best dressed. But anyway, that's my little contribution, my creative contribution for the week. Anyway,
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. And you've set the bar high for the rest of us, actually. I think my household may get annoyed if suddenly all the wooden spoons disappear.
That was actually a conversation Sue and I had the other day, and I said, if it was when I was growing up, we never had wooden spoons left over to have spoon. But Sue, if you need some help planting your spoon, I have a little person here that's dressed up as Iron Man that would be more than happy to help if you have no better offers.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. That's ticked the box. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Sue. That has definitely made my day. Peter, how's your week been?
Well, it's been a great week. Really enjoyed the week. Like to say to Justin, I absolutely agree. There's some things we are passionate about, and it's no shame to be passionate about very serious issues. So I think it's great that you were. And to Sue, love the t-shirt, really nice. You should have got a few more done because I'll wear them as pajamas too later on. But I hope that wasn't a challenge with the spoon. Man, I'm a science person. Artistically wise, I always get help from others. So if that's a challenge, oh goodness me, I don't know. I'll secretly get the next door neighbour to help me out, I think, because she's artistic. I'm certainly not. But look, a lot of the same things during the week. Isn't it wonderful? I don't know. Hopefully, it's not just ego. When people say, "Look, yeah, we voted for you, and there's reasons why we did." They also say, well, South Ward at least, they say, you and those other guys, and on your video show, well, we've listened to you, and we actually think you're sincere, and you at least mean what you say, and you are very interested. And from my point of view, it's all about getting good people into Frankston Council. Okay, I may not get in. It's up to the electors to vote for me or not. But I really hope a bunch of really good people get in. Would like to be one of them because I'd like to help out in the good cause. But that's what we need after the last number of years. Negativity in the campaign, well, but we're leaving that to others. We'll remain positive. If they want to be negative and say things, I think the only positive thing I can say is to reach out to electors, to voters, to say, really look at statements that are made. People will come out with big statements and sort of have a look at the whole lot of them and say, are they just saying things to please me to get a vote? And as we say, come back to us anytime you like and say, do you really think that, or what about this or that? Any of us will be happy to answer it. So dig a bit deeper than the face value. Because I think it'll be interesting to find out a few things. I've had a few people, and I apologise to those who've sent me long emails, very well thought out ones. I'm sending you long replies because you deserve it. I want to address all the issues that you've addressed. So they'll be coming very soon. We have been busy in different ways, but I've answered quite a few, of course, but a little bit of patience. I'm drafting things up almost as we speak. So we'll get back to you for sure.
Great, thanks very much, Peter. And it was a pleasure spending a little bit of time with you this week in a COVID-safe way, walking out pamphlets as we got the last of our 14,999 letterboxes done. I kept one pamphlet for myself as a souvenir, but going to put one of the things that I learned about Frankston this week, above everything else, is how many small parks and reserves there are dotted around the place, and actually how different each part of Frankston is. I think if I hadn't actually walked pretty much all of the South Ward, I never would have been able to realise how much difference there is in the different places and the different types of housing that exists in Frankston, and frankly the warmth and wonderfulness of the different people that live here as well. It's been a real eye opener. I think. I already thought that Frankston was great, but just getting around, and the work of the volunteers that have helped out over the last 2 weeks has just been phenomenal. From 8 years through to 80, whole families going out, people volunteering to take stickers on the back of their cars, things like this, because people are hungry for change.
Yeah.
They're really hungry for change. And I think that, if you look at the last 4 or 8 years, and, you touched on this at the start, Justin, people want to see change, and they want to see, let's face it, they want to see people who are mature and thinkers on council. We may not have the answers to every problem, but they want to have people who are prepared to be open and to listen and to have their minds changed as well. There've been a few disappointing things through the week in regards to the behaviour of some others, but you know what? That's their choice. You can only manage your own behaviour. You can't manage the behaviour of others. And if they choose to be like that, well, it's kind of their problem, not our problem. And I just hope that, come the time where we do have a new council, and hopefully we do have a clean sweep across the board, across the different wards, then I certainly hope that they'll take that as an opportunity to do a bit of self-reflection as well.
Can I just jump in and introduce my number one volunteer? Is that all right?
Of course. Yeah, sure.
Everyone, this is Nicholas. He's
Hello,
Nicholas.
Son.
Yes.
That's Stephen, Sue, and that's Peter. Say hi.
Hi.
And say hi to everyone in
Hi,
France.
Nicholas.
Nicholas, what do you think of my spoon?
Do you like? Oh, you can't see it.
You have to put it
Oh,
forward.
there
There you go.
That's it.
Oh, yeah, cool, yeah.
Oh, that's great. 5-year-old saying cool. Thanks, Nicholas. What are you wearing?
No, Nick's been my absolute biggest champion, biggest helper, and biggest supporter with all of the campaign. And I don't think, I would have been able to do what I've done without him and making sure that he beat up every single mailbox that he put the pamphlet in. All of those that got damaged pamphlets, this is the culprit right here.
That's Iron Man for you.
Yes,
I suspect he's been delivering them with passion, though, and that's what's
Oh,
important.
absolutely. All right, go on, off you go. Thank you.
Awesome.
I have to say, one of the things that is quite remarkable about this whole experience, this is the first time I've ever run an election campaign, but the thing that's really remarkable about this is how important friends and family are to being successful. And it's whether it's my kids or my partner or family friends who've stepped up because they're really keen to see a change, or whether it's actually people that you're meeting for the first time who phoned you up and said, "Can I take a call flute, or can I put a poster in my window?" and these kinds of things. It's remarkable. It's really is remarkable. And I think that one of the great things about about local elections is that it does. It touches people directly in a way that quite often state and federal elections don't.
Yeah.
I think that sort of ties into a question that just popped up on the feed from Paul Howard. So how would you all work? How would you all work together if elected? I think we're really demonstrating that.
Yeah.
In the forums that we're doing now, we've got multiple people here in principle that are in competition for the number one tick on your ticket. But at the end of the day, both Peter and Stephen aren't in the same world as Sue and I. And whether or not we share all the same values and ideals, we all have a different skill set. And this is a direct demonstration of showing people that we can work together. We have very broad differences of opinions on a great variety of matters. Here we are. The proof is in the pudding. It's not the consistency that of saying one thing and doing another, or talking about ideals and not coming through with anything. This is evidence right here, right now.
I think it demonstrates one thing I really believe in, that is you've got to have a diversity of opinions amongst mature people who can work together to get the best outcomes. And we've talked about a range of topics over the weeks, and there's been no yelling, shouting, no forced muting. There's nothing like that, and that's good on you, Stephen, for holding back. But no, we've got on very well, and we do have a range of opinions on different things. A lot of our opinions may align as well, but the experience and the skill at working with other people is something that's required in council, and that's been lacking. Clean sweep would be great. The other thing, a comment I got during the week, though, I'll just point out that talked about, it was sorry guys, specifically South Ward, saying something like, I believe that you three fellows, you actually work well together, and that even if there's a bit of residue left over from the old council, I actually have the faith that you have the maturity to calmly stand up for the right thing. And that's what you have to do sometimes, just in a mature, calm, but consistent way, stand up for principle and act on principle and don't cave in. And we said none of us would do that from whatever ward we come from. United for Frankston, that's what we want to be.
Yeah, I think sorry, go on, Sue.
Yeah, sure. And just to add to that, what people might not know is that a number of us do reach out to the other candidates in our own ward and in other wards, just to touch base, have a conversation. That's reciprocated in my experience in the majority of cases. In a couple of cases it's not at all, and I know voters are having similar experiences in terms of getting responses to questions or not, or having questions deleted or not. So that whole commitment to being in this campaign really is about committing to something that's a heck of a lot bigger than me. And, should I be elected, then I really can only do the job with a good team of people that I'm part of. And that's been my experience in my professional career. It doesn't always work ideally. Life's not perfect. There isn't a level playing field out there. But that's what I think you can work towards achieving, smoothing those bumps out and making things that bit fairer for everyone. Or certainly that's the side of the line I go, as opposed to the other side, which is about grabbing more for me and having a much narrower focus on what I can get out of it. So I think it's been good to do these forums for me. I've chatted to some people in other council areas, and they haven't done these types of forums. They've just relied on a Facebook or a website, which may be working for them. But for me, being a first-time candidate, I've felt it's been really important to be able to see a quasi three-dimensional me through the screen in terms of, and consistently just showing up and consistently getting to know who am I really. So it's good. And any more questions we've got today, can you guys flag them, because I'm not able to?
Yes, I will. I've got an eye on the feed.
Right.
And I've got somebody in another room that will give me a quick prompt as well if I don't catch something as well. But I think that, everything, I would actually be quite keen to continue these sessions even after the election. Perhaps not 3 a week, but I'd be quite keen to carry these on irrespective of the outcome of the election. Anyway, you touched on a really important point there, Sue, around, that piece of transparency around, whether or not people delete comments or get back to people that write to them and so on. And, it's on the different conversation threads, I'm struggling to keep up with which ones are going where, and then they end up further down the screen and that kind of thing, and trying to be responsive to email and so on. But the thing that struck me was that as long as you go back to people within a reasonable time, they understand the fact that you're busy. But the other thing that I've noticed is that by going back and just being straight with people and with a little bit of kindness, that they don't expect that. They expect some kind of political response, which they're not getting. And they go, hang on a minute, we're talking to normal people here. And I think that that's quite telling in terms of how we've been interacting with residents as well. And I think just having that, just being straight with people and saying, this is what I think, this is what I believe we should do, even though we don't necessarily agree on all of those. I think the fact is we can actually have a grown-up conversation and reach a conclusion. So I'm quite excited at the prospect of joining the three of you in the council chamber, as well as a number of the other candidates, because we were hoping to have another candidate come along today who's not been able to join us, but I have spoken to a lot of candidates across the different wards, and I think that those candidates that have demonstrated some transparency and integrity,
yes,
absolutely happy to work with them.
Yes.
Those that have tried to shy away from the difficult questions or just, frankly been rude, it's, well, yeah, I'll work with them, but I'll be keeping an eye on them as well.
You have to do that. And yeah, just to throw in there, during the actual registration, I was in there registering, and one of the other candidates came through. He would be new to council. I won't name him, but he would be new to council. He seems a great guy to me, and I've talked to him a fair bit. He responds. I still won't say who he was, but there was something about he forgot to bring the money with him. And I said, would you like a loan? I just happen to have all these dollars in my wallet because we're used to paying by card now. And he said, oh no, my wife is just getting it, so it'll be okay. And he said, but thanks for that. And I said, that's fine. So it's not about trying to exclude people. It's not about trying to say other people are bad or not a terrible candidate. It's about trying to work with each other. So reaching out, and the ones who have responded, well, clearly they want to work with people. They want to work within the council to resolve things. But those who are aloof, those who take things off because a question's been, not necessarily by me. I mean, there's been pages where questions have been asked, but it's a bit hard, so it's gone. Or it's a response they don't like, so it's gone. We've got to face up to things. People have asked questions about, are you being funded by anybody? And the answer is no, by the way. But we'll take those questions and answer them honestly. If I was, I'd say so, but I'm not. Working as a team, facing up to the hard questions and answering them, that's what it's all about. So.
Yeah, look, I go on, Justin. Sorry.
I was going to say, let me just jump off the back of that, Peter, because it's sort of, I'll use your words, it's sort of a segue into what I'd like to say. Look, I made mention, and I don't want to dwell too much on the negatives, but it's something that I've had on my chest, and I think it's probably important to get out on a sort of transparent forum, which is, in terms of some underhanded politics side of things, there has been some talk about my vocation as a real estate agent. And what I want to assure everybody, not just the people in this room, everybody, is it was suggested to me that there might be a conflict, whether or not it's a material conflict of interest or a conflict of interest in general. So in good faith, I went and got some legal advice. I was told unequivocally no, unless it was somebody that you were doing business with at that time and it was something that came to council with. But just to be certain, I also spoke to governance within council, just to make sure, and they said, look, in principle, no, but hey, there's been an amendment to the Act that we're not across. Give us a couple of days. So they came back within that couple of days and said virtually the same thing as the council that I've got.
Yeah.
So that's something that's been brought up a couple of times about me in terms of the negative aspects, but I just like to throw that out there to everybody as well. There's certainly no secret. I'm not the hardest person to find on the Google machine. So that's something that I did sort of do my due diligence on, because at the end of the day, if there's going to be a constant conflict, then why am I here?
Yeah. A quick comment on that, Justin. As you know, I'm on the board at Chisholm Institute. Now, on occasions, I have to excuse myself from the room, and on occasions, others excuse themselves from the room. So it's on occasion. It's not all the time.
Yeah.
I think whenever something comes up about the Berwick New St John of God Hospital, we have somebody there who's the CEO of the Berwick just St John of God Hospital. So she said it's in a sense a conflict which is there on the books. But if we get to talk about something like that, she may or may not have to excuse herself from the room. Sometimes the chairman says, please stay in the room because there's some things here that would be really good to get your information for the board. The same thing would happen, I imagine, as in your game. There will be things with your expertise which would be very useful for council to know. It's the same with any of us. If something comes up about dealing with defence or something, I don't know, the Department of Defence, there could be something where I have to excuse myself from the room. Any one of us are in that situation. So it's not sort of an overwhelming or overarching thing. It's just on a case-by-case basis, item by item in the meeting. It's not a big deal.
And sorry, go on, Justin.
Sorry, all I was going to say is sort of in closing on that point is it's all about a moral compass and integrity at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
if it comes up, and it doesn't matter if it's Sue, you, Peter, you, Stephen, or me,
That's right.
I think I might have a conflict here. This is what it is.
Yeah.
And either you are excused or you're not excused. But I don't foresee it being something that's for any of us, for the most part, where it's going to be every single time or every single meeting or every single issue.
Yeah.
But let's not kid ourselves. There will be issues that come up where we sort of need to do the right thing and say, look, I'm sorry, this is a client or an issue that I'm sort of involved with. Sorry, Stephen.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, hats off to you for doing that as well. And there was a different matter that I took up directly with VEC as well, after some scurrilous rumours were being put around, and that was put to bed quite quickly. But I think it's indicative of the kind of the nature of this campaign of where there are some people that are just going to try and chuck rocks irrespective of what you put out there. But I think I get the sense, certainly from the voters that I've spoken to, certainly based on the emails and messages that I've had, I get the sense that people see through that quite quickly, and that people are doing their research on the candidates and paying very close attention to not just the candidate statements, but they're then going out and doing their research. They're Googling everyone they can. I think the fact that, the four of us plus some of the other people who aren't on today's call have just put stuff out there in a very transparent way. I think people appreciate that. And I think that it's important that isn't just for the election. That's something that has to then continue throughout the term of council if we're elected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've been out and about again today to put some posters up, and I'm really grateful for the businesses that are open, the essential grocers, supply shops, cafes, takeaway restaurants, really being very happy to put posters up in their windows. And I've said to them, I'm taking a photograph and I'll post it on my Instagram. So, there's a bit of a give-get relationship there with that. I mean, it's a tiny little thing to do. I feel they're giving more than I am, but that's been really welcome, and a few people have stopped to chat or make a comment. Other people have always said, we've been waiting for you almost, we know this is happening, just go ahead and put your poster up. So that's been really really very supportive. It's nice to have that relationship with the community that way.
It's funny, isn't it, Sue? Like the first one that I put out, I was really sheepish about, and the business owners in Frankston were just so supportive. I sort of felt like I was going to walk in there and have to justify my position and go, well, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, and go through this sort of virtually a sales pitch in order to be able to get a poster up. And I've gone, oh no, I've seen who you are. Yeah, no, I'd be really happy to support you. And coming back to what you said in terms of then advertising their business, that's a good deal. Everybody is getting something from it. You and I are getting exposure. All of us are getting exposure. And at the same time, we're also exposing that business to another reach of people as well through, this network. We were talking about marketing yesterday, weren't we? Marketing of Frankston.
And that's really what all the candidates have been doing in this process, is presenting their brand. Who are they? What do they stand for? How do they come across? And then using a variety of communication options to do that, and repeatedly reinforcing the message and the style and the image. So I've worked with lots of marketing teams over time. I don't have any marketing qualifications, but when you just think of it about being a communication or a vehicle of communication to get to know people, that makes it very, I don't know, it's easier for me. There is a science to it. I'm sure when I look back at how I've handled everything, I'll think, I should have done more of that and less of this, and bigger posters, and a whole heap of things with the experience of running this campaign. However, the marketing for us at an individual level, let alone talking to the specialists who will be who market Frankston, it's really just a conversation, a communication.
And it's extraordinary how much of not just being on a campaign, but actually being a councillor is about communication. I've watched some of Glenn Cooper's Frankston Community Connect sessions over the last few weeks, and there's been some fantastic examples of communication, and there's been some which have left me scratching my head a little bit. Interesting though, just picking up on the comments here, is that the candidate for West Ward, Oliver Hill, has commented that he's surprised he's not had any negative feedback on the campaign so far. I think there's something fishy about that. I don't know about you guys, but there's definitely something fishy there.
Very fishy, very fishy. I think they need to cast their net a bit wider to find that feedback.
Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not
guys are getting into.
Maybe they're not trawling enough.
Are you going to go with people need to peer a bit deeper into Oliver Hill's candidacy? Stop it! Oh, no more dads.
I think
a deep dive into his.
Yeah, deep dive. I don't know. There seems to be shifting sands as far as I'm concerned.
He's not behind me, is he?
He's going to run aground soon.
Yeah.
I really wish
we cast adrift with all these comments.
You really need to anchor that statement there, Sue.
Stop it.
We could go on too long like this.
We could. Right. Anyway, sorry. Back on track. It's a shame Nicholas wasn't there for those gags. The other thing that I've found really interesting about this campaign, and I actually had a couple of phone calls about it, and also a discussion at home about it, was, can you put more out there about who I am? And I have to say, I felt really awkward doing it. So, I put my policies out there, I put my values out there. It's like, people want to talk about, who you are as a person and what are the other things that you do. And so I did a post, I think it was last night. Yeah, I did a post last night, I think it was, about some of the community work that I do. And I have to say, I felt deeply uncomfortable putting it out there, because it's always been one of those things that's very, very private. But people are actually asking questions about those kinds of things. And, it feels, on the one hand, it feels deeply awkward because, you want to be humble and modest. On the other hand, it's kind of shows your authenticity, and you're making yourself a little bit vulnerable by putting those things out there. And then at the same time, I reflect on the conversation that Glenn Cooper hosted a couple of hours ago, and that question of vulnerability got brought up. And I think it's really important that as candidates, but as councillors, we do demonstrate that we're comfortable with having a little bit of vulnerability as well.
Yeah.
Well, we all do. And people have sort of said, look, who are you and why are you good? And also, I think, well, I said, look, this does feel uncomfortable to me, because it's like the old joke. Look, I'm the best in the world. I do this really well, etc., etc.
Oh, what happened to your sound?
We've lost you, Peter.
You hit mute.
I just remonstrated. I remonstrated so much, I just hit the button. But the joke, the punchline of the joke is that I'm all of that. And did I mention I'm very humble? I'm a very humble person. So it doesn't come naturally if you have a bit of reserve, but you do have to, people are wanting to know who you are. And certainly, I said a few things the other the Glenn Cooper session I was on. He said, yeah, that's great, Boo, but who are you? I said, yep, straight to the point, Glenn. And then I did say a few things about who I am and what I've done, and ask questions about it. I'm happy to answer them. So, but I'm very humble as well. Best person for the job.
Talk about what you do. And what you do is really important. But it's also who you are whilst you're doing that, which is
I found that interesting. So I know I've cut you off, but it just brought to mind something really, I'll get payback. You get the psychological testing to say what personality type you are. So I got mine done because in the military you do, because they want to know what sort of person is going to be in charge of people. So it came out and it said, you're this type. Somebody can ask me and I'll send a message back later on. But it said, you're a teacher, aren't you? Or you're a this, or you're a blah, blah, blah. You like dealing with people. And I thought, oh my gosh, they can do a test and it'll tell you who you are. And it was pretty spot on. But I think it's good too to know who you are. Sorry, Sue.
Yeah, no. And I actually just commenting on what you're saying, I've worked with work with one organisation, and they use something called a Strengths Finder test, which is really focuses on what people do well and what they can bring to the party, which I think is a fabulous way to work, as opposed to what's the gap in your experience, where are you weak, and therefore we'll invest lots of money in you to fill that gap, which to me is a negative way of approaching it. But the organisation where everyone did this questionnaire to identify what their strengths were, they actually wore them on their lanyard for work. So when they had meetings together, they just do a quick check to make sure, have we got a whole range of the innovators, the creators, the attention to detail people, that all the mixture of skills in the room, so that the conversations would be much more robust and interesting and productive. So yeah, I think it's, but being vulnerable about things that have not gone so well in your life, or things that you find challenging. I think going for this type of role, you want to present as perfect and super man or woman, but that's not reality. We've all experienced challenges, and the mental health conversation earlier, was an example of that, and some things that happened within my family and over time, and wouldn't necessarily choose to talk about things, but in terms of experience and in the right forum, then it's absolutely relevant to talk about that experience, because it helps, level the conversation.
And I think it's really important that we have a tendency to kind of push our lives into, well, this is my life around council, this is my life around community, this is my life around family, and this is my life around work. And I think one of the things that I've certainly learned, I've kind of learned over the last 15 years, but over particularly the last 6 months, where it all just blends together, because you don't have that physical separation in the same way that you once had. So it's harder to kind of draw those lines. But actually, they're all important parts of being a person, and they're all important parts of our lives. And all of them can be used as strengths and sometimes challenges in the role of being a counsellor. But by having a diverse team with those diverse set of strengths and experiences, you can actually lean on those and lean on the other people amongst council. I mean, if fingers crossed, we were all elected, I would hope that the new council would be willing to go and have a weekend away together, intensively working on how they're going to work together. And it doesn't have to be done in a costly way, and in fact, it can probably be done at no cost at all, given the fantastic facilities that we've got around Frankston. But building those relationships and doing what I call with my students contracting, but doing that, that's not a piece of paper you sign. That's everyone, all 9 councillors coming together and say, this is how we're going to work together for the next 4 years, and making sure that that's understood, and the meaning of those words that you choose is understood by everyone, because then it allows you to call things out, but it also allows you to be vulnerable, and it allows you to admit when you make mistakes. And I think that's really important. It's not just about the strengths, and I think a strengths-based approach is absolutely the way to go, but it's also about being self-aware enough and open enough. And Justin and I had a private conversation some weeks ago where we talked about different perspectives of each other, and realised that we were coming from a different place.
Too, Steve. I apologise for it, and I own it. Which was I'd made an opinion about Stephen, and I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. I had it wrong. And look, I was always brought up, and this is sort of social conditioning, that if you're wrong, you apologise for it, you own it, and you don't apologise unless you mean it. And I did. So I was a bigger person and called Stephen, going, "Hey, I've sort of pegged you wrong. This is what I think." He's come back. This is where I stand on what you think. And some of the things were in alignment, and some of them weren't. And that's fantastic. I'm really okay with that. But on the basis of what you were just saying, with your students, I think it was, or staff, it's about buy-in. And with a buy-in comes ownership. And comes ownership is a sense of pride in what you're achieving and what you're doing. And look, there's a question you might want to grab from Paul Howard on the link at the moment.
Oh, let me come back to that one.
Particularly relevant with what you're just saying, Steve.
You might have to read it out for me, please, Justin.
No worries. So Are there any parameters in place or can be put in place that stop rogue/self-serving councillors behaving terribly? An example, like some of our existing councillors, emoji. Maybe a mid-term evaluation to see how the councillors are performing or behaving, just so our council doesn't keep the dodgy flea circus feel about it that it has now. Is that a possibility? And
Well,
probably not the words I would have chosen or thrown out there, but yeah, I sort of appreciate Paul's candor as well. But I think it's really relevant with what you were just talking about when we're talking about ownership and buy-in.
yeah, I know there's a thing about shared accountability, particularly when you're in a leadership role, and let's be frank. Being a councillor is a leadership role within our community. Yeah, they are the corporate board that looks after Frankston City Council and is supposed to represent the views of the residents. So it's not there for a jolly. It's not there for a hurrah. It's serious business, and you're elected there to be a leader. One of my policy positions, and I'm still in the process of kind of pushing them out, but they're all there on my website. Visit vote1mcdonald.com, click on policies, they're all there. And it's on here. Just saying.
Well done.
As one of those, I would actually like to see publicly released, and I'm not quite sure, haven't quite worked out how to do it yet, but I'd defer to Sue on that because she's got the kind of experience and background that can help us do this. But I'd like to see 360-degree. I'd like to see, put it on a spoon, Justin. I'd like to see, 360-degree feedback given to councillors on an annual basis. I'd like to see some form of performance review that goes beyond how many meetings you attended. There's a statutory requirement around that in terms of the number of meetings you attend. That's fine, okay? I'm sure every councillor will meet that statutory requirement. But it's also about how many consultations have you actually done. It's about how many residents or ratepayers have complained about your behaviour. It's about your responsiveness to people. It's about how you work as a team. And there's I think you need both the kind of the behaviour, you need your metrics that you measure performance against, but actually what's far more important is how people behave and how they model that behaviour for the community. Because as potentially 4 out of 9 councillors, all 9 need to model. They can all be different people with diverse ideas and diverse opinions and diverse skills and diverse strengths and diverse personalities. But they've all got to model the behaviour that our community expects and that we also expect of our community. And I think that's really important. So I went on a bit of a rant there, but leadership's my thing. That's what I do.
No, it's completely relevant.
Yeah, can I say something really quick before Sue does? Because I just want to make it really quick, which might lead into yours anyway. And that is being on a board now. I can say it is really important that people think about what type of councillors they put into council, and that goes without saying. But one of the really big reasons is that you can have just about anything in measures, etc., and rules. A lot of the time it's going to be a vote of the council to determine what happens to somebody who's really breaking the rules. It'll be a vote of the council. So if you have 5 out of 9 very reasonable councillors, you'll get a good determination on different things. If you have 5 out of 9 councillors who, are there for different reasons, maybe they don't care that much, well, they'll vote in a certain way and you won't get the determinations to have good behaviour in council.
Yeah. Something that came up in the previous discussion Justin and I were in when we were talking as a whole group about supports for mental health. There was some commentary about systems failures, information not being passed from one service to another, and conversation went to putting resources in and funding and I think all of that is good to talk about and understand, but it's as you're saying, Stephen, it's the people quotient in that. You need people to make systems work and you need people to understand where budgets are needed, and that's the consultation, or it's that ownership and that awareness that an issue is important, and how can I best communicate with another person. So there's that. Half of the time it's about what resources are at your disposal. The other half, it's about how am I going to build the relationships to administer those. I was just trying to remind myself of there's a great quote from it's actually an American guy, but in a Hall of Famer in sport. And he said with his teams, if everyone on a team could say about the other person, can I trust you? Are you committed? And do you care about me? And answer yes to all of those questions, then you've got a really fabulous team. And I think to have a group of counsellors come together, I think very early on, it is about having that tough conversation. Right, what are we signing up to as a group of people, where we'll keep each of us accountable for working within the code of conduct guidelines, working to what is expected of us as a team of people, and let's review that periodically. And you know, as you were saying, Stephen, have a contract, or you know, a psychological contract or an agreement that we will do that perhaps together. Yeah, so I don't know, just my thoughts there.
It's the whole of the board or council that counts. If you have a good bunch of people there, it works well. It's sort of what Sue was saying. It works well. I've seen it where I am. Good bunch of people. Interesting, if you've got a minority, what I've noticed over the years, that if you have a very small minority of people who aren't actually engaging in a united team approach, then often they tend to fade away, they leave. But that's in other boards. On a council like this, they will persist in that place for 4 years. So they won't fade away. You know, they won't fade away. On other boards, they seem to. So it is really important who gets there. It'll make the character of the council or break it. We want it to be a great council, a team effort.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few comments about you know, there's a code of conduct, or is there a code of conduct? And Peter, I think very early on in the campaign, you and I had a conversation around code of conduct, values, and ethics.
Yep.
And I think code of conduct is fine as a document, but you've got to get people to actually go with the spirit of it. And ultimately, the spirit of it is about respect. It's about not bringing the council more broadly as an organisation into disrepute as well. And I think if you have very candid and frank conversations at the beginning of the council term about what are the things you're concerned about within that, and you actually talk about what you mean by different things, because everyone's going to have a different, but part of the code of conduct is about not doing or saying things that bring the council into disrepute on social media. Okay, but social media is also one of the key ways in which you can engage with residents and businesses and talk about the things that are important to you. But what we saw in the last term of council was that almost became weaponized. And I think it's about having you know, applying things like a code of conduct in a way that encourages positive behaviour, but not using it as a way to beat people over the head.
Yeah, well, that's right. I agree.
Can I just agree to everything that all of you have just said? Steve, buying and ownership. Sue, value-based prospect. And Peter, sum of its parts. They're all colloquial phrases, but how relevant are they to what we were just talking about? I know, I look at it's sort of my MO, isn't it? Bringing out those profound things at the end there, but they are. That's exactly what it is. They're, you know, we're buying in and taking ownership as a council, as a part of your code of conduct. It's an expectation. You need to buy in and you need to take ownership and responsibility for your own behaviour. Stu, when we're in the last Zoom that we're in, we're talking about, you know, the sort of funding and when we say funding, it doesn't necessarily mean money. It's a value-based prospect. And Peter, when you were talking about the board of directors or not so much a board of directors, but the councillors being virtually a board of directors and relying on a vote or each other, the council is the sum of all its parts.
That's right.
I think that's where it ties in nicely. So I've got nothing to add at all, other than to validate everything you just said and saying it's absolutely fantastic. I'm buying in. I'm taking ownership.
Yeah.
I can see the value behind it, and it's a sum of all its parts.
No, I think you did a very good summary. And what's interesting to me is that we talk about who you really are, whether you can work with other people, etc., etc. We need counsellors who can do that. Now, these actually, it's come to me, of course, brainwave, but you've already realised it, I'm sure, that, of course, all these broadcasts, we're talking about things. People can get an assessment of who you are, what you think about different things. So I think that's been very useful with this. And Stephen, it's great that you started it. And, you know, I mentioned it, and I think with my expertise, I could have got it going in about 3 months. I would have got there. So I'm really glad you picked up the ball, and because people have been able to see who we are, how we interrelate with others, and we've talked about different issues. You can't fake it over 10, 15 things. We did a joke, you might remember. I'm happy to say this to everybody. I was going to have an argument with Brad, and we thought, we've got nothing to argue about. We don't do that sort of thing. So there's going to be a spoof joke thing on a Sunday, but yeah, sorry. We behave well.
Yeah, there's a big difference between disagreements and an argument.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I certainly know from some of the conversations we've had so far, both in this forum, but also some of the private conversations we've had together, that there are going to be issues where we're not necessarily going to see things in the same way, but happy to have a discussion and negotiation around that. I just wanted to come back briefly as well to, you know, that whole, you know, picking up a little bit on the discussion that you had, Sue and Justin, with Glenn Cooper, and listening to some of that, you know, the discussion was really focused around, you know, mental health much more than anything else, which was great. It's a really critical issue. And it's something that affects all of us. I'll be the first one to stick my hand up and say, you know, there have been times that have been really challenging for me over the years. And everyone's finding lockdown tough. But with the exception of a few people such as yourselves, most people seem to think it's all about just chucking resources at the problem. And I think that this is, you know, quite often we look at these problems and think, okay, we'll just chuck more money at it. When sometimes it's actually not about chucking more money about it, but it's about doing things differently. And it's about thinking of the role of council differently. So there might be areas where we don't have a direct responsibility according to legislation, but there are things that we know that are really important for our community, for the 140,000 people that live in the municipal boundary, that we can still affect change on. And that's what I'd really like to see, is that it's not just about financial resources, it's not just about things, but it's also about being vocal for the 140,000+ people that live within their city boundaries, to make sure that it is the best place to live in Melbourne. And I'll say that unashamedly. Justin, I know you called it something else in a slightly different way.
I was waiting for you to start bullying me, Stephen, about the "let's make Frankston great again." Sorry, guys, I'm not Donald Trump. But, hey, can I just throw out another colloquial phrase?
Yeah, of course.
It's about being it's not about being responsible, but it's about being accountable.
Yes. Yeah. That accountability.
The first ones were free. All the next ones are $1 each, just so you know. Times are tough.
I think, I like Sue won the bigger print competition with Stephen, by the way.
Yeah, I have to say, I did when I saw Sue's t-shirts get put up on her Facebook feed. I thought, oh, hang on, I want to swap deal at the end of this campaign.
Yeah, I heard the offer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Peter, you and I
it might be the same size print, but you've just got a bigger chest than I have. Does that work?
I'm
gonna duck that question completely.
Very wise, my man.
Yeah.
One to work there.
But look, I'm conscious of time. I'm going to give you all an opportunity to make a final comment. I'm just going to remind people we are back on Tuesday. I'm hoping to get there is a sporting club that I have been talking to who've expressed interest in coming on Tuesday. We're just trying to firm that up. It may be at the normal time of 5 o'clock. It may be pushed a little bit later. I'll get that sorted hopefully by the end of today. But we're going to be talking about community sports and the role of council within that. This topic's come up in particular with the new lights going up at Frankston Park and so on. But we need to remember that Frankston's more than just the Dolphins. And so hopefully on Tuesday we'll have a really good discussion around the role of council in community sport. If you haven't already voted, research your candidates, ask them if they live in your ward, and remember, if you're in the South Ward, vote one McDonald. I got you there, didn't I, Peter?
Usually.
I know Brad normally does that. Justin, final wrap up, and what are you looking forward to this week?
Look, more of the same, more consultation, more speaking to people. Maybe getting my own printed T-shirts. I'm not really sure. Just throwing it out there.
I think we better.
So maybe some bigger writing than Sue's, but no. On a serious note, just keep the questions coming. What I want to see happen post-election, and it doesn't. I think I might have said it, and tell me if I'm repeating myself because it's been a really long afternoon. Is I want to see people continue to engage with their councillors, maybe not 3 times a week, like you said, Steve, but on a regular basis, and make sure that open communication continues, because it's all well and good in an election sense to go, I'm available, always talk to me, and so on and so forth, and then that sort of feathers away, and you're no better off for it. But I'd love to see that continue. I like what's happening at the moment. I love being challenged. There's been some really hard questions asked. Particularly around, for me, was political leanings, because I saw them as a very personal choice. I've got to the point now where I don't mind. I've just set it out freely to quite a few people. We're at the point now where I've been honest all the way through. So why should I sort of sidestep around what my thoughts and ideals are, or what my voting patterns were? No, Glenn Cooper, it's not passive aggressive what I was doing. It was just aggressive. That's sort of an in-joke between Glenn, Alan Middleton and Sue and myself. They've all been helping me work on my passive aggressiveness. We're throwing out sort of little bits and pieces here and go, that's passive aggressive, and it's not.
I haven't noticed it.
So no, look, just keeping it all running, keeping the conversation going, and being able to be in a room full of like-minded people as well to sort of help each other rise up, help each other look at ideas differently and offer alternatives. And coming back to the word I keep saying is keep challenging each other.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Justin. And I'll also go, you and Sue deserve double thanks today, because you've done back-to-back Facebook Lives. So you've worked, you've earned every vote that you get today.
Thank you. So, no singing for supper tonight.
No, for me, coming up this week, it would be great to have some more conversations with people. I know a lot of people will have voted and got that done and dusted and in the post. A lot of people, maybe they've been working or have things going on, will just be getting their ballot packs opened, or maybe just receiving them at the start of the week. So just to reassure everyone, I'd be really happy to continue having conversations about anything that crops up. I'm delighted that I've been able to introduce Frankie Spoon to the community, just to show my multiple skills around crafts and things. But thank you everyone, and thanks Steve for organising these events. It's really great for us to be able to do this.
It's a pleasure.
I've got to put it out there. It's very clever, but I'm absolutely terrified of your spoon. Every time you get it, I go, oh!
No, you've got to love the spoon, Justin. Got to love the spoon. But my quick closing comments are basically, really quickly, a bit of a frivolous one. Great way to shut a man up. Sue, you did well there. Women, vote for Sue. she knows how to hold her own. Seriously, I think the big one is don't take things at face value. If you haven't voted yet, keep the questions coming in. If I've said something, or if any other candidate said something, it might sound great, but you may just want to test the waters a bit, see whether it's actually real. It's easy to come out and say trite, pleasing things during an election campaign. or to say things that, yeah, may or may not be true. If you smell anything, ask, and that includes us. So don't take things at face value, for sure. And
Thank you very much, Peter. And Sue, I got to say, you've raised the bar with the spoon. Oliver Hill has suggested somebody starting Forkville. I suspect that there might be a health and safety issue with that one. But we'll see if that one takes off.
Made a comment that I thought, I was a little bit worried about what the third instalment would be.
Mikeville.
If, as I said, if you haven't voted, research your candidates, ask them questions, make sure that you know whether or not they live in your ward, because you want to make sure that they live with the consequences of the decisions they're party to as well. And we will see you back on Tuesday, where we're talking community sport, hopefully with a special guest who's not a candidate, and hopefully we can get some of our other councillors, candidates, I should say, back on board. And do remember, you get the council you vote for, so think carefully before you vote. Thanks very much, everyone, and good afternoon, Frankston.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye. 3, 2, 1.
We're still on.